Coming out at the end of 2017 and really taking over this year, Granny is the horror game that's got everyone talking. The combination of stealth gameplay and jump scares has made it the perfect game for its genre. However, like anything else that's successful, it's inspired some rip-offs both good and bad. If this is your first time visiting us, then make sure you like this video, subscribe to TheGamer, and ring that bell to become a member of our notification squad so you never miss a video. Without further ado, here are some of the worst Granny rip-off games. Escape Grandma's House, Angry Neighbor Gran Game. One thing which made Granny such a sleeper hit was the graphics. They were darn good for a mobile game. Plus, they really helped create the unnerving, scary atmosphere which made the game so popular. Bearing all that in mind, you'd think if you were going to try to make a copy of Granny, you'd get the imagery right. However, that's what developer GamesRock did not do when they gave us Escape Grandma's House, Angry Neighbor Gran Game. Just look at what they've done. While Granny was dark, almost monochromatic and eerie, this is, well, it's hard to describe. It's sort of like blocks, some of which are colorful, and we honestly don't know if this is meant to be scary or not. Oh, and Grandma, doesn't look anything like the emaciated messenger of horror she should. She looks more like the very first drawing of a very small child who then wrote it off as a bad first go. This game looks horrible, and if we're being honest, it doesn't play much better either. Five Nights at Granny's. Five Nights at Freddy's was the point-and-click classic that has been blowing people's minds ever since it came out in 2014. It brought back all of the fun horror gaming has to offer, and even now, there isn't too much that can beat it in terms of scares, ingenuity, and gameplay. Of course, Granny is seen as being the spiritual successor to Scott Cawthon's classic. However, have you ever thought how good it would be to have a combination of both games? Well, Zealous Dreams did. Unfortunately, the tech company, which has got a pretty good reputation for mobile games, totally misjudged it when they made Five Nights at Granny's. Now, there's nothing wrong with the idea in and of itself, but it fails to deliver the wow factor which the two games it was influenced by delivered in bucket loads. It's kind of like peanut butter on pizza. They're both great, but you just don't need to have both at the same time. Scary Granny Horror House Neighbor Survival Game. Yes, while the title looks like it's something that'll do exactly what it says on the tin, looking into it makes you realize it doesn't actually make any sense. Like, is it the granny who's scary? Is it the horror house? Or is it the neighbor? If it's a neighbor survival game, are we surviving the neighbor, or are we the neighbors living next to the horror house? Is the granny the neighbor, or are they someone else entirely? There are so many questions. Unfortunately, having had a look at the game, we aren't entirely sure whether we can be bothered to get the answers for them. The gameplay is baffling, and the graphics are pretty poor too. Hello, Stickman. If you're making a horror video game, it can be tricky to get everything just right. More so than, for instance, a scary movie or a TV show, since you need to frighten players enough to let them know that they're playing a horror game, but not so much that they can't bring themselves to at least try to finish the game. The combination of serious scares and intense playability is the secret behind Granny's success. It's got enough horror for Fright fans, but it's a genuinely brilliant and fun game to play. The same sadly can't be said about the next game on the list, Hello, Stickman. Now, this is a game which has a lot going for it. It's enjoyable and the graphics are pretty good. However, what we don't get from it is a feeling of fear. In a way, it's a shame because for what it isn't too bad. Daddy. Back in 2017, the world of indie gaming was shook by the arrival of Dream Daddy, a dad dating simulator which isn't, let's face it, the most oversaturated genre out there. It combined romance, humor, and courtesy of Canadian punk band Pup, a great soundtrack to be an unlikely hit. Move on a year later, and gamers are really into Granny. Sadly though, the next game on our list, Daddy, isn't some bizarre crossover of the two. Yes, Daddy is a Granny ripoff with quite a few problems, and we're gonna tell you about some of them. For starters, let's talk about the main antagonist himself. While Granny looks emaciated, scary, and horrific, Daddy looks a bit too large, friendly, and jovial for us to ever worry about him haunting our nightmares. He looks like a friendly giant from another unmade game who got ported over into Daddy. Secondly, the graphics are nowhere near as good as this game's source material. They're blocky and, in our humble opinion, pretty cheap looking. We certainly don't get anywhere near as many chills looking at this as we did with Granny, that's for sure. And that's all for today's video. We hope you enjoyed it. What's your favorite Granny ripoff? Which is your least favorite? Let us know in the comment section below. As always, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to TheGamer.